Welcome, everybody. I don't want to say welcome because it sounds so proper, but I have to be proper because I have two proper ladies that are with us this evening. Stacy Dalberiste in the right on my right left. I don't know, the mirroring thing is kind of janky. And then Alexa, who's right under us. And I didn't want to mess this up, so I actually asked them to give me some proper intros because we're gonna do this proper. So Alexa Philossaint. Oh, and I have to also add on your titles. So I don't know if you put your titles on, but let me go ahead and add those on too. As y'all can see, like I am not like I'm not good at this part of the thing. But okay, it's all there. Okay, great. So Alexa is the senior best interest attorney guardian of the guardian ad litem program. So I want you to talk about that, because not a lot of people may know what a guardian ad litem is, let alone the program. But the last time that we talked, were you a senior?
I was a senior.
Okay.
I had gotten promoted right after I came back to work after maternity leave.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. And then Stacy is an elementary school autism coach with a passion for the special needs community. Now, guys, ladies, I will say that I will do better. I want to boost y'all up with the intros. I'll be listening to some intros and man, they just make the people sound like they are so amazing. And you are. So I will do better next time around. But for now, and the reason why is because for those of you that are watching is because I've known them for some time, so I've gotten comfortable, but y'all don't know them. So yeah, so I got to work on the whole adjustment there. But anyway, I want to thank you both for just rocking this out with me. The reason why I asked you to come on here was for a few reasons. One or two might have been a little selfish. So for these last about 6-7 days, so I recently got back on Facebook and have been just going on this sprint with doing a lot of starting over videos, and now we're actually going to another series. And I don't even know, guys, don't ask me where these series are coming from, but they're just kind of coming up, and I'm just like, all right, let's roll with this. So you guys are like the conclusion of our starting over series that we've done, and I just want to do a recap for those of you that might not have known about it. So the first thing that we talked about was just what starting over was in general. And then I talked about people who need to stop starting over because it can be self-sabotaging for those of us. I was one of them. There's just this rush that, you get from starting from the bottom again, and, working your way up, or from falling off the face of the earth and then coming back and people seeing you for the first time. It's like, oh my gosh, like people do it for so many different reasons, right? So there's some of us that need to stop starting over. But then we talked about the difference between starting over and shifting over. And we used the story of Abraham, who went to the promised land. So he was in Canaan, but then he had to move to Egypt because of a famine. So famine because of the circumstances. So sometimes circumstances causes us to not just start over, but maybe just to shift, make a detour, and then come back. And then we looked at taking over. So after you have shifted, sometimes that happens, you have to or should take over the space that you're in. So we looked at Joseph. The way that he took over was through service. In other words, be present, be in the moment, stop thinking about where you should be, but use yourself and your service to the maximum capacity where you are. And that helped with Joseph because, he ended up being like in charge of the prison that he was in. He was in charge of Potiphar's assets or estate. So then we looked at speaking over, and this dealt with Moses. So Moses, he, took longer than a detour, 40 years away from what he was supposed to be doing to be a liberator again. So it was a part of a starting over thing, but he had a confidence issue. Like, God, I don't know. I can't speak. Who are you going to say? Like will they believe me? So he had to declare to himself, but not just to himself, to the people that I am sent him, right? That God sent him. So we talked about declaring when you do begin to start over, you need to declare it, especially to yourself, the one who has gifted you already with the thing that he's assigned you to do. Then we talked about running over, which was Mary and Joseph with Jesus. So this is another Egypt story where Herod killing firstborns, and the angel came to Mary and Joseph and said, y'all got to bounce, like y'all got to peace out right now and don't come back until I tell you. And that can happen sometimes. So we looked at urgency and what that means. Sometimes you might be on the right path, but then you got to make a pivot because of danger or because of something that's more important for the short term that you got to deal with so that the long term can be preserved. And then the last one we talked about was turning over. And this was Paul through his conversion. This turning over was a new leaf. So there are those of us who think that we need to start over again and again on the same, sheet. But then there are those of us, y'all just need to let it go, flip the page. Whatever's done is done. Move on with your life. Gotta fix, correct, reconcile, and you just got to move forward. Okay, so tonight, what I want is to bring you both on, because in my starting over experience, it actually affected both of you. So when we did this first Let's Chat situation in May, and then George Floyd happened, a whole lot of stuff happened. Facebook was getting real ratchet, and I was just like, I can't handle this. This is a lot. I'm out. But not only did I leave, like I started everything over, like post, everything was gone, including the first videos that we did. And that affected, I don't know if it really impacted, but it made me think about, when we did our first video, how that could have maybe, affected some momentum or anything that you might have been also working on. Like I have no evidence of the footage. It's not saved in StreamYard. It's gone. And I felt so bad, like, oh my goodness, we got to do another one. And this time, like for real, to stay, it's got to stay. So, but that's what happens though, right? Sometimes we may start over for ourselves, maybe even for our own self-care, whatever the case is, but it does, whether for good or for bad, it does affect those that we love, that we influence, who are our friends, our family. And so so the first question that I have for the both of you is, talk about a time when you had to start over, but you just didn't start over once. You maybe didn't even start over twice. And this might be connected to our first video, which actually kind of works out, because the first video, there's no proof anymore. So, so maybe you can use those experiences, but you had to start over again and again, and talk about how that affected your circle, the people who invested in you, the people that loved you, and what that meant for you. Yeah, anyone can go first.
Okay, so I guess I'll go first. A time that I had to start over and over was actually with school. I always say that if I was good with my hands, I would have not gone to college. I probably would have picked up a trade, made lots of money that way, but I'm not good with my hands. I don't have like a particular skill. So I knew that school was for me and I needed to finish, but it was really hard at first. I lacked a lot of like organizational skills. I was really terrible at time management. It was really hard. So I was failing classes. And when I tell you, I was failing classes until I was dismissed from school. And I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody. Like my mom didn't know. Nobody knew. And I had to, not only was I starting over, like taking classes over and over and over again, that I was not passing, eventually got dismissed from the school. And then I ended up having to go and literally start over again at a different school, a community college, but this time with no financial aid. I had to pay out of my pocket. So that was really, really tough. And I feel like it impacted my circle, because I was really like there were little kids who looked up to me, not little kids, but kids in high school. I was part of a program called College Summit. And every year I went back to return my service, because this was a college readiness program that prepared me for college. Well, as best of their ability, right? A lot of it was supposed to be on me to figure it out as well when I got there, which I didn't. And so I went back every year and I told the kids how awesome I was doing in college. And I was like, I'm really not, because I kind of failed. So it was really embarrassing at first, but eventually I gained up the courage. My current mentees, I tell them all the time, they know that about me. I didn't make it the first time, but I did. I started over and over and over again until I graduated finally. Praise the Lord.
That's awesome. So, Stacy, what I'm going to ask you to do is, so go ahead, and I guess you have to. Oh no, it's good, because there was an echo. So I thought that you'd have to like go into the audio settings and like turn off echo and do all of that.
Still here?
No, I think you're good now. I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the thing. There's a lot in that story. Let's unpack just a little bit of it. And first of all, let's go through this idea of how did you feel? Okay, by the way, guys, maybe it's just me, but I'm on a Red Table Talk tip with Will Smith. I don't know if y'all saw that and how they also had to do a whole starting over thing. And I saw the psychology, the psychologist who was there. I was like, man, that's so deep. I don't know if this is gonna get Red Table Talkish, but let's just see if we can get get there. How did you feel like when you realized that starting school again exposed all of the things that you sucked at, or at least you felt like you were deficient in? What did that do to you for you to then kind of go down this cycle of continuous failure until you finally did make it through? Like, what did that do for you?
At first, it was really embarrassing. I felt like I didn't want to go back. I didn't know what to do at first. It was, I'm a first generation college student. I have two older brothers, but one went to school, but he went to school a different way. He went to a technical college, and then I have one who didn't go to school. So I was kind of like figuring out myself. I'm the child of an immigrant who didn't go to college, at least not in the US. So I was literally figuring it out myself. The people who were my mentors at the college readiness program, I definitely could have reached out to them, but I was so embarrassed that I didn't, which now looking back, I really should have. But I think at first it kind of like made me, it discouraged me a lot. I honestly, like I said, if I was giving my hands, I would have been like, forget school. Since I'm not, and for a while I took a break. I took a break for a while, and I was at work and I was like, you're never going to make much money in the field that you want to be in if you don't finish school. And so I figured it was time to figure it out and start over again.
Okay, so in this process of starting over again, how much did culture have like bear on you? So I'll give you an example. So not many people know this, at least at our church. But so my mom has an MBA. She graduated with a 4.0. I'm finishing an MBA, and I'm praying to God that she set the precedent. So what got to come through, right? So there is that level of pressure where you feel as if somebody in the family did it. So you gotta, you gotta stand it to uphold. So there is that a level of, I would say there's a high achieving culture in our family. And if it's not academically, you're talking about with the hands, then it's trade, but there is that sense of excellence. So what do you think was like, what was the disconnect, I would say? Because I think that clearly you're also from, or at least cut from that cloth, right? Culture-wise, it's like, they expect nothing but the best. So now there's this pressure on you to be the first one for college, right? Because the others went, continued professionally, but this is like, you are the one. The weight is on you.
Right.
How did that play into the entire process of just choosing to start over, especially not just the failure, but also choosing to start over?
Like you said, the pressure, I think the pressure was one of, I didn't want to embarrass my mom because I don't know about you, but growing up in a Caribbean household, the parents always say that you are the example of them. Like, oh, you reflect me, which I don't, but but my mom used to, they get together in their groups after church or after whatever social gathering, and they say, oh, how is, my daughter's a doctor now. How is your daughter? And it's like, and first of all, I didn't go to school to be a doctor. So that's strike one against me, right? I'm not going to be an engineer or a lawyer. I'm going to be a teacher. And we know that teachers, it's a thankless job. So, and a job that doesn't pay very well. So, I know that there was a little, not disappointment. I'm grown now, so she doesn't really care, but that disappointment, or that unsaid disappointment, it was weighing on my shoulders. And like I said, I was ready to say, forget this. I'm not going back to school. But I knew that I would have to answer to my mom. And honestly, when I graduated from the community college, she thought I was graduating with my 4-year degree, and I was graduating with my 2-year degree because I
How did
was.
you pull that off?
I didn't go to graduation. I didn't go to graduation, and I told her, I was like, I'm not gonna go. You know, it's no big deal, and I didn't say anything. And but I was at school for so long that she was like, this has to be her 4-year degree. And then when I graduated my 4-year degree 2 years ago, she was like, this is your master's or your bachelor's? She knew it was my bachelor's, but she's asking me like, is it your master's or your bachelor's? And I was like, oh girl. The stress.
Sit down. We need to have a talk. Okay, I want to come back. I want to come back to that. So, Alexa, you have had, well, have you had a similar experience? And and it doesn't have to be academic, but when was there a time when you had to when there was something that you knew you needed to do, and so even if you failed the first time, we've already went through Stacy's story. You just said, okay, I need to do it again, and I got to keep doing it until I move forward.
Alexa can't hear you.
Oh, is that because of me? Let's see here. Hold on for a second. Alexa, you might have to go into the cam. Oh, she can't hear me, so I have to write it. Okay. You want the cam mic settings. Okay. Hopefully she'll get that. Okay. So as we're working through this process of starting over, how did that pressure? Okay, I think we might have her on again. Let's see here. Can you hear us now? Okay, she might not be able to hear us still. Let's see. I'm going to put them both up and we'll see which one. Okay, so one already went away. Okay. So Alexa, as soon as you fix the audio, then we'll switch over to you, okay? If you still have any issues though, let's see here. I just forgot she can't hear me, so why am I talking as if she can? Let me know. Okay, I think she's gonna come back on. Okay. All right, so Stacy, this might be you and me. We might just have to carry this thing until she's able to get back. See, the first one was so smooth.
I know.
But let's talk about that, right? So let's talk about this. So in the second time that we're doing this, it's not as smooth as the first time that we all had it. It was seamless. What in your life has happened in that way? So you talked about, with just from an academic standpoint, beginning again was difficult, especially the second time around, and it took you longer than you had anticipated to actually finish. But the good news is, and I think the optimism is, that you actually did finish. Mm-hmm. So we talked about this idea of culture, this level of excellence that you needed to uphold, that even led you to be a little bit untruthful, so that you can save face, so that you're able to just kind of complete in the failure. Okay. So while Alexa's still working on coming back on, so the Anti-Hero Clinic is about shame resilience. That's like a large part of it, and helping individuals who might have made mistakes, who might have misappropriated their gifts or talents, and they really feel like they dropped the ball and they can't start over, they can't move on in purpose. Clearly that wasn't the case for you, because you did continue, even though it took you longer. A lot of people don't know this, but my first master's took me 7 years because I had a whole gap. I was like, well, nobody's asking for my degree, so I'm gonna just go ahead and work. Yeah. And by the time, it was time to finish, like I'm teetering on 5-6 years. And now in the 6th year, I'm actually trying to finish the paper and the stuff that's necessary to graduate. But the point is this: we work through that, right? We work through what I would call the dip, the slog of stuff that is that's necessary for someone to prove that they're worthy of mastering the thing. You did it. I've done it. Alexa has done it. Hopefully she can come on so that we can get this out. But during the failure season, talk to us about that. Like what was it like to know that you weren't doing your best, but putting on the face that you were and still trying to, like, what was the conflict? Like, how did that work?
It didn't work. I mean, it worked on the outside, but it didn't work on the inside. I didn't feel good about it, that's for sure. And I think that I think every day I would tell God, like, believe, like I needed answers because I didn't understand how to start over at one point. When I was at the same school, if I flunked the class, I knew how to start over. I would re-register for the class, right? Even when I was on academic probation, I still got to re-register for the class. But when I got that paper that said, you're out, I was like, wait, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now? And that's why I sat on it for so long. And if anybody was going to ask me, I felt like if anybody asked me, I would either tell them that, I needed clarification on how to start over. I would snap on them because I was so embarrassed and I didn't want them to ask me any questions. If my mom asked me how school was, I told her it was fine. And she says me, if she would ask me, when are you going to be finished? Because every Caribbean parent is going to ask you, when are you going to be done? I'd be like, that's not how college works. In high school, you finish, you have 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. In college, it could take you 10 years, and I was like, you need to give me my space. Mind you, I'm literally like in my room crying for help to the walls because I wasn't like out there trying to figure it out. But thankfully, some people, I don't even remember what made me do it, but I went over to the community college, which was literally on the same campus as the school that I was going to. And I asked for help and they walked me through it. And thankfully I ended up finishing.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, this idea of asking for help. And clearly, there are things that I couldn't have done as well. So when I finished, the first degree, it was actually she was retired at this time. So she was no longer at Andrews. And so she's like an emeritus status. And she asked me, hey, what's going on? I think she did it before, she officially retired, but she hung around and said, so what's good? You going to finish this thing? And long story short, she stuck with me through the entire process, through the research that I needed to do and all of that. And by this time she had already, like, Andrews is in Michigan. She moved back down to her family in Tennessee. Like, she was not even in the same state anymore. And if it was not for her, I would not have graduated. Like, I would not, like, it would not have happened, right? If it was not for the provost at the time, he might still be that, who gave me the funding for the last semester. I just needed one more semester left of funding. I would not have graduated. So okay. I think we're having some hard times today with the Wi-Fi. Wow. So okay, so
it's not easy.
Talk to us. Now listen here. So talk to us about, like, this idea of needing help. Even though you have begun again, would you say that the reason why you were successful in the final round was because you said, okay, I can't do this thing by myself?
Yes, absolutely. I think that when we go to college, there's like this culture where we tell everybody, like, go be great. And then there's no support. Nobody tells you, like, at least for me, if it wasn't for the college readiness program, I wouldn't have known how to fill out my FAFSA. And it was great. Tab, I know that Tab did a live stream. We had a FAFSA night last week. Things like that, those weren't going on at the church that I was attending at that time. And although there were college students at my church, I still didn't know what I was doing. So it was so confusing. And I felt like I should know this. Like, I went through 4 years of high school. I was like, you're not a baby. You should figure it out, because that's what people were telling me, like, you're an adult now, figure it out. And I didn't know what I was doing, but asking for help made a huge difference. It did. Like, at work, at home, at school, it just makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Alexa, I think that I think we got you. Can you hear us? I think she might be able to hear us, but the signal is a little delayed.
Mhm.
If you can hear us, Alexa, just let us know. So while she's transitioning, let's talk about this, Stacy. What of this idea of when you had to stop starting over? When you
Mhm.
said, "Okay, um, I begun this process. I did the process again. I started it over again." And there's just a point in time when you or maybe somebody else, nah, you or somebody else has said, "Oh, Alexa, can you hear us?"
I can hear you.
Okay. It's just like a 10-second delay, but good. so so we're gonna do our best. We're gonna do our best here. So I was just asking Stacy, what has share with us a time when you've had to start over continually, but you just had to say, okay, enough is enough. It's time to move over. It's time to move on, or it's just the time maybe for that opportunity has expired. So I'm going to throw that question to you, and walk us kind of through the psychology and just the understanding of what that was like for you.
Okay, let me know if you guys can hear me clearly.
Yeah. There's just a slight delay, so we'll wait so that you can just take all the time you need.
Okay, so a time where I had to start over, um, and then eventually call it quits, I would say was an old relationship. Um, I kept on trying to make it work. And in the end, it just didn't. And I had a really hard time letting go. But I'm so grateful to God that He restores. And not only does He restore, He makes whole even more than what you could even think was possible. Um,
Hmm. It was getting good. It was getting, oh man, it was getting so good.
I
Okay.
know. I really wanted to
You
hear it
know,
too.
I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to start this live stream over as we're talking about beginning again. There's gonna have to be another time that we actually do this to get our full team. Like we need the full team, so we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna we're gonna do this again. But I'm gonna throw the question to you, Stacy. I think that right now we both have solid connection here. So yeah, talk to us about that kind of time
About a time. Can you repeat the question one
when
more
you just had
time?
to start over, and then at one point you just said, "Okay, um, time to stop. Let's move forward."
So yeah, I, man, work. I feel like there was a job one time where um, I I was climbing up. I don't want to say the ladder, but I was doing different positions in the job, and I did feel like I was starting over because there were different positions. I went from being a greeter. I was working at the YMCA, and I went from being a greeter and working at the front desk to working as a camp counselor, and then being
Mm,
the coordinator of an entire section or programs in the at the Y. And at one point, I had to stop starting over there. Like I felt like
mm,
not only I had bigger and better things waiting for me. But also, I couldn't keep trying to start over with a place that didn't respect my religious views.
mm,
And I kept telling them that I refused to work on this day. And then, 1 month it was okay, 1 month it wasn't okay. And then it
right.
was like, well, so and so is the same religion as you, and she's here or whatever. And
Oh wow.
it just gave me so much anxiety.
Mhm.
And I felt like, I don't know if I'm going to be fired or what, but before that happens, I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
I spoke with God and I quit the job, and I felt like I just couldn't do it. Even though I started over when I went to another job, but I couldn't start over with that job anymore. I was done.
Yeah, it's so ironic because I'm reading a text from Alexa as we're talking about this idea, and she says, "Thanks, guys. It's not cooperating. Time to call it quits." Like, like
Mm,
because, and I think that this is such a poignant moment right now
yeah.
where we she's been starting over and over trying to get online, and now it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
there's that moment. So what advice would you give to somebody who is in that same place? And I'll write this while you're talking. I'll write this to Alexa as well, so that she can still engage, and I'll be able to patch her in through what she says. But what advice would you give to someone who is, it may not be a summer camp, it actually may be a job. Like, we're older now as well, so there just might be a moment where, like, listen, I try every day. and or and I think those are the two biggest ones, right? I think Alexa was talking about relationships. So it's either professional, right? It's either work or it's either relationships. I think those are the two biggest ones. So just kind of amassing all of your experience, what advice would you give to someone who you are looking them in the camera right now and you're telling them, listen, this is when it's time. And I know it's different for everyone, but for you to say, okay, this is when you probably should, you know,
Call it
like
quits.
Alexa says, call it quits. Yeah.
Well, of course, depending on the situation. I know that for me, um, when it's time to call it quits, you feel like it's weighing on you, like um, it could be weighing on you emotionally. It can be physically weighing on you. It could be, mentally weighing on you. It's time to call it quits. If your mental health is affected here, it's time to go. And I felt like even with school, even with that job, my mental health wasn't where it should have been. And I should have noticed earlier that I was flunking out of school, right? I should have taken action earlier when the first time they didn't respect my religious views at that job. But I just kept going and kept starting over, kept starting over. But when I realized that it was weighing on me way too much, I had to call it quits. Definitely stay in prayer.
Yeah.
Like I said about that job, I talked to God so much about that job, and I was so scared. It's scary to start over. I'm sure it was scary when you
Ah,
logged
yeah.
into Facebook and those videos were gone. So, like, for me
Yeah.
to think a job that I enjoyed so much that I thought I was going to be there forever. Now I'm working at a job that's over an hour away from that job that I was working at. I'm not at a place where I thought I was going to be back then. I'm in an even better place. So staying in prayer,
Yeah.
talking with God about where I want to be, and making a plan. Like, I had an action plan when I finally picked myself up off the floor, but making a plan. I know that I was going to stay there. I was going to figure out how I was going to get to bigger and better places. And
Mm.
that helped.
Okay. I like this idea of a plan, because you, I think one of the things, and I don't know if you wrestle with this, but one of the things that I wrestle with is timelines, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a plan, but I'll also have, we have the smart paradigm, right? It's got to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, relevant, and timely, right? So that last one where it's like, okay, put a deadline to it. What happens when the deadlines are missed? So earlier today I talked about this idea that for many of us, you will have you would solve the problem years in advance, and so you're feeling like you should be moving further ahead, right? Because, so, like, the anti-hero clinic idea, I've had this for like 6 years written down, but like almost 10 kind of formulating, and it was difficult to feel as if it was never moving forward. And then I deviated and did some other stuff, and then it came back, and so now I'm in a place where it's like, okay, this is it. This is it. Where do I begin? Like, how do I start to mold this out? And I realized I wrote it in this book like 6 years ago. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's crazy. So I would always feel as if I'm kind of behind schedule,
Right.
on the journey, when technically I was a little ahead. I was, kind of, but I just didn't realize that. What do planning and timing, what does that do for you? How do you balance that for yourself? Because it's tough. It's tough for those of us who have a vision, and we don't see the vision come to fruition, and then it's like,
Yeah, what do
all
we do
right,
next?
yeah, what do you do next? So
So
and then to figure out when do you move on or just kind of hold on to it. Yeah, so talk about your experience with that.
So what something that I love, and I'm gonna pull in my current job into this, but something
Yeah.
that I love is that for kids who are considered ESE or kids who have special needs in the school system, they
Mhm.
all are supposed to have something called an individual education plan called an IEP. And IEPs have goals, right? So
Yeah.
those students have goals. And the goals will say something like this. By December 2021, Stacy will be able to complete a task or ask for help
Mhm.
independently in 4 out of 5 opportunities with 80% accuracy, period, right? So if
Yeah.
so that's a goal that we give each student like at least 5 goals, has 5 goals a year. If
Yeah.
they don't reach the goal is revised. And I love that because um I don't always meet my goals. I'm big on journaling. I write things down. I write goals every week.
Yeah.
But when I don't meet them, I revise them. And I love that in IEPs, we can revise their goals. They have a year to reach them, but
Yeah.
you might not always reach your goal. Go back to the drawing board, look at it, think about what was the problem here? Maybe the student cannot ask for help. Maybe they need a visual to ask for help, right? So
Mm.
now you're throwing in, given a visual, Stacy will ask for help 4 out of 5 you know what I'm saying? So when
Right.
you miss that deadline, you go back to the drawing board and you think about why did you miss that deadline? What do you need so you can reach that deadline next time? And
Mm.
so I had to bring in my job in there just so it can make sense to me, or if it can make sense to you by
Yeah.
me
No, no,
bringing in my
no.
job there.
That's super helpful. And maybe I think when we do this again, pull into that some more, because it's not only necessary to articulate what the actual goal is, but then you have to review it. You have to assess what
Mm-hmm,
happens. That's been the part I've mentioned this before at some time last week, where that's the part that I tend to skip in the focus planner that I have, where at the end of the week you're supposed to review everything, and
mm-hmm,
it asks you what went well, what didn't go well, what worked, what didn't work, right? And then it asks you three specific questions. What will you start doing? What will you
mm-hmm.
stop doing? Or what will you improve?
I love it.
And so many times I just kind of leave those pages blank, like, oh, I'll figure that out later. But that's what actually refines, like you say, the next week. Because what I realized that if I don't fill those pieces out, then I kind of will just leave the goal behind, unless it's something that I know I really got to do, like homework, right? I'll leave it behind and just try to do something else, as
Yep.
opposed to, no, let's continue to refine the same goal that we set from the beginning of the year or the beginning of the quarter. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's real key that you mentioned that. So Alexa chimed in. So we're starting over, but we're trying to improvise too. So she chimed in. She said, so a time when I had to start over was when I was in a relationship that I just couldn't let go, and I kept on trying to make it work, but it just wasn't working, and it wasn't the right relationship, but I couldn't see it at the time. But God was so good. After about a year and taking time to really talk to him and understand who he was, he allowed me to be restored in ways I never imagined. I am now, I am at my, um, I think she meant I am now with my husband, and we have been together for 12 years and married for 8.5 years. I didn't realize it was that long. Wow, that's crazy.
Man.
They've been together forever. I was like forever, but wow, I didn't realize it was so. And married for 8.5 years. All in all, letting go allowed me to receive a greater blessing than I could have ever thought imaginable. There are times when we try something over and over, not realizing that it's not in God's will for us, but
Mm.
we want to force it and keep on trying instead of letting life take its place and allowing God to guide us to what he truly has for us. Starting over was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
I love it.
Wow. Yeah. That is definitely a I think it's a helpful reminder too. Even as I'm beginning this again, I'm thinking of just the idea of the fear that comes along with this. Like right now, I'm just like, man, I don't know, God, I'm not sure. But
Yep.
there is going to come a moment where it all is going to come together.
Yep.
This vision of using the gift for words, and for you, your ability to, I mean, it just doesn't take patience, but it's a skill. I think the biggest thing that people probably say is, oh my goodness, you must have a lot of patience, but it takes
Mhm.
more than that. Like, to be the autism coach, there's a level of improvisation and creativity, and then you got to pull from all of the skill sets. And just imagine from where you were. We're talking about lying about a 4-year degree, which was a 2-year, like all of that, to where you are now. I think that speaks a lot to your ability to be able to share that story like you just did so candidly, because not just because of where you are now. I mean, that's a huge help, right?
Yeah.
But you have found a level of security in knowing that's who I was. That's not who I am anymore. And me
Right.
starting over and doing it the right way, getting the help that was necessary, planning, making the goals, resetting, and doing the necessary work allows you to look back and to talk about what could have been considered a shameful story. But it's
Yep.
not that shameful anymore. It's actually one that other people can resonate with and say, oh, wow, yeah, I am that kid in my family. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I did have to do this and this and this just to try to save face or try to cover up the fact that I wasn't as good as my family thought I should be. Right.
Mhm.
And you've done that. And so to be able to share that narrative, I think is really, really important. Not only important, I think it's valuable. I think it's
Yeah.
valuable that you're able to do that tonight. You're probably gonna have to do it again though.
Not a problem.
Or you might have some new stories, right? We might have some fresh experiences that we can share. But this was great. I'm glad that we were able to talk. And then obviously Alexa will come on with us next time around, and we can talk about it. But yeah, any last thoughts, any last ideas? So remember, we talked about like 6 different things over the week. We talked about this idea of shifting over. Some of us don't need to start over completely. We just need to pivot a little bit. Some
Yeah.
of us need to not just shift over, we need to run over, treat certain things urgent. Some things are not urgent, delegate what's important, but not. Then we talked about taking over, serving where you are in the best way that you can, so that even if you're not where you want to be, if you can just maximize where you are right then, you add value where you are, so that when you go to the next destination or to the final and I tend not to try to think of things in destinations, because when you feel like you finally arrived, then you kind of loosen up.
Right.
But when you get to that next phase or that next season, you'll be even better because of the characteristics, the skill sets, all of that stuff that you've built along the way, and just the people that you've helped too. Not just for you. So we talked about all of those things. What would be something that you would want somebody to come away with from this idea of knowing when to start over, knowing when to quit? Because that's really what I should have said. I mean, I said it in the description. What quitting, knowing when to just stop and move forward in a different direction. What would you tell someone?
So, when it comes to starting over, I want to say like it's not always a bad thing to start over. Um, Lean on your circle, your family who ask for help. That's the big thing.
Okay.
It's not always a bad thing. Ask for help. And when it comes to letting it go, um, I would say that I think that we usually feel a little something that tells us when it's time to let it go, and we're holding on
Mm.
to it, and we shouldn't be. So listen to your inner voice, listen to yourself, trust yourself, and
Mm.
know that if you think that it's time to let go, it's probably
Probably
time
time.
to let go.
Yeah. All right. All right. We're going to end with that. Stacy, thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for the transparency. I think that's what makes this thing work too, is just the openness of each of us. Even Alexa, through text message, who
Hmm.
was able to share, being able to start over with someone else,
Yep.
and now living a life, man, almost a decade of marriage. It's crazy. So yeah, and also the I think the thing that I would take away from all of this is know thyself.
Mm.
Know thyself. That's probably from what you were talking about. The more that we understand who we have been created to be,
Yeah, yeah.
what our limitations are, what our strengths are, what positions or situations we might be placed in that will stretch us,
Hmm.
and maybe some things that if we stay in it long enough, it's gonna break us, and we just
Yep.
need to, and not in a good way, yeah, the more that we get to be in tune with who we are, obviously because of whose we are, I think that we would have more of a discernment of when it is that we can talk about trials produces perseverance, and perseverance patience, and patience character, and character hope. That's all good, but
Yeah.
there's some trials that we are not supposed to go through.
Hmm.
Just as we
That's
move
true.
forward.
We put ourselves there.
So absolutely, absolutely. So, Stace, thanks. I really appreciate you just
Of
coming on
course.
and sharing. But yeah, we're gonna have to do it again because
Absolutely.
our third person, she's not here. So we're gonna have to repeat it, and hopefully, between now and then, we'll have some insight. Some more. I think some more growth, even if it's tomorrow. Something would come out of this. But okay, all right. I'll let you go. I'm probably gonna hop into this men's group too. I think they're probably still on. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, Stace, I'll see you later.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And for those of you that are still on, I appreciate you guys. And I really want to just say that as we just transition out of this talk about starting over, be encouraged. Be encouraged and know and just understand that everybody's situation is different. We heard from Alexa, we heard from Stacy. They're in different professions, but the reality and their circumstances and their decision making, a lot of that has been similar. So take on to that, hold on to that, and even the ones that I've shared with you, my situation as well. Yeah, be encouraged, guys, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one to come. All right.